up, everyone? Star Wars Dad back for another video. Today we're going to be looking at some of my favorite new decks from Legends of the Force, some of the new leaders, as well as some of the old. I kind of just wanted to do it all in this video and kind of just talk about decks that I'm excited about, decks that I think will be good, and decks that I think will be interesting, all that good stuff. Please make sure to like and subscribe, as we are getting really close to 5,000 subscribers, and I greatly appreciate all the love and support. Please make sure to check out my Patreon and make sure to comment below in the video what are some of the new decks and old leaders that you're most excited about for this upcoming set, and I will be giving away a prize to one lucky winner, and I'll be doing that going forward in a lot of my videos. So to get into today's video, the first deck that I really like, first new leader, as I'm sure many of you are aware, is Mother Talzin. I just think that it's a very good leader with the -1/1. The Force synergy for these colors is really sweet, and the fact that we get to use Force Lightning and it's just very strong in combination with all of our pieces of removal. I do think that this deck is going to be relevant. In testing, it's been great. It has a good mix of like hand disruption, good mix of removal. The Turret Sentinel is great. The unit removal is great with like the Assassin and the Anakin, and the Dooku and the Snoke and the Avenger. There's just so much removal in this deck. I think when you count up, if you include like the unit removal in here, I think it's like between 35 and 40 pieces of removal in this deck. So pretty insane. And then you also have the hand disruption with like Jedi in Hiding, which is a really good card. So just an all-around good deck. Feels like it's gonna be a well-rounded deck that has good answers into a lot of the meta, like it's control, aggro, mid-range even. I think it's just gonna be a well-rounded deck. Talzin itself is pretty cool. It's also cool in green because you can pump it up with like Gideon or Craving Power to make it an even more relevant leader. But in this particular version, we're just more focused on like hand disruption and unit removal and whatnot. Some things that stand out from this list for me is Force Lightning is just amazing. It's good early, it's good late. Force Throw, of course, gets activated very early. Sorcerer's Blast and Force Throw and Drain Essence all have really good synergy with Talzin early on. Force Choke, of course, it only costs 1 resource. The reason that I'm playing 3 Drain Essence is because on turn 1 I can anything with 3 HP in the game. So it's just a lot of times a good piece of removal. It's also just a cheap way to get the Force online if we need it, which is very relevant sometimes. Like for Qi'ra, for example. Qi'ra is one of our, such a sweet Sentinel. I mean, for its value and its synergy with the Force token, I would say it's probably the best Sentinel in the game at that cost, even better than Chilson, because of its ability to just stay alive for so long. I do think that this leader and this particular archetype, Red in particular, are going to be very strong. But yeah, I've seen the ECL version as well. I think it's solid, but I definitely prefer this version. Number 2 is Darth Maul. So the knock on Darth Maul, of course, is that it comes out on 6. It only has 6 HP, and that's definitely its weakness for sure. But its leader ability is really good. Like early on, just being able to ping 2 things, and especially if you're a player that likes that style of play of like spreading damage out throughout the game and setting up knockouts, Darth Maul does a really good job. And when I was playing both of these lists, you could tell they're like very similar. Like if mostly the same cards, if not the exact same cards. I think there's some subtle differences, but both of them felt strong to me. I think, definitely flipping a turn earlier is great, and definitely the 7 HP on Talzin is better, I would say. But if Maul's able to stick, I mean, Maul has a really good on-attack ability that synergizes well. You could even play like Fallen Lightsaber onto Maul if you're that worried about it just dying, to make it an 8/9 that spreads damage twice because of Fallen Lightsaber plus its on-attack ability, which I played that in the original version of this, and I still think that that's pretty relevant, maybe playing a couple of those. just to kind of beef things up. It also, has good synergy with a lot of your other units to have the fallen lightsabers in here. So I think that's maybe one change I would make, but I don't think we should just write this leader off completely just because of its cost and its on attack ability. I still think that there's a chance that we see it has some relevance. Like I said, its action abilities is really strong. Like being able to ping 2 units is very good. Um, and over the course of a game, again, like especially if you're that style of player that enjoys spreading damage around and kind of mathing it out all game, which that's one thing that I've always loved about card games is decks like that where you spread damage. And I'm not playing Bombing Run in here, but I do think Bombing Run would be another card you'd want to consider. But this is, first run at this list. But in testing, it felt great. It felt almost exactly the same as Talzin. It didn't really feel like one was better than the other. And I tested them both significantly um, a few weeks ago and more recently with the updated lists. But again, you're a ton of removal, like close to 40 pieces of removal when you include the units, and then a lot of hand disruption. So again, pretty well rounded. I would say the weakness that I've found in both these decks so far is like heavy hand disruption, because you're not drawing a ton of cards, and like Night Sister is like your one card you could add the Kiadi Mundi, the 5-drop, but I don't see you getting coordinate a lot in this type of deck. But I would say that's one weakness for both decks for sure that I've seen. Okay, Anakin. This is another one. There's been a lot of talk about this leader. Like, why not just play villainy so that you don't have to deal with the potential downside of not being able to play your villainy cards? And I think that writes this leader off a little too soon without even seeing what potential this leader can have. From my experience, this leader felt great. What the style of play that I had with this was, I'm just focusing on attacking, putting pressure against like more aggressive opponents. I'm really not using my villainy removal that much. I'm really only using it at a key time. So I'm really just focused on putting pressure, and then occasionally I might use a piece of removal when it's at a key moment, like a Force Lightning or a Power or No Glory. But I mean, I'm still playing Takedown and Forces with me in here so that I don't always have to rely on that. And both of those are good pieces of removal. Forces with me is also a good finisher. And a lot of times with aggro, you're just racing them with your restore units, and then Constructed Lightsaber is really strong. Just getting the villainy stuff for me felt like a bonus because you also have the unit removal of Anakin and Luke. So like I'm not relying, and when I was making this, that was the thought in mind. Like I don't want to rely on that just in case my opponent is playing heavy removal. But even still, your unit removal is going to help you at a certain point get things in your favor. I still feel like this deck is not something you should just write off right away. And just because it's easier to play certain cards, that's not how I look at it. I look at it as a hero villainy blue deck with Barrage and Force Lightning added in. Even like, for example, like sometimes I'll still play Power of the Dark Side at 5 resources in the right situation, right? Like if my opponent plays a big 5-drop, then I'm gonna play Power of the Dark Side even if I don't have the Force online. So there's certain situations where that type of thing happens, and it's still relevant. So I don't know. I'm not gonna write this deck off. I definitely think that there is a lot of potential here, and we're still, this is still the early stages of what makes sense for this leader. I definitely think it has a lot of potential. The constructed lightsaber also has been amazing in here, like on Chirrut, on Anakin, on the Anakin unit as well. For Anakin, the leader, makes it a 6/9 with Restore 2. On Chirrut, it makes it a 5/8 Sentinel that's really hard to kill if you keep getting the Force online. And Chirrut is really important. So is Village Protectors, and that's another thing. Both of those units are very important at protecting your Force units so that you can continue to get the Force online. And if you're able to do that, which you're able to most of the time, I would say like a really bad matchup for this deck so far in testing has just been like hard control, like because I'm just not, I'm not an aggro deck, and they're just continuously removing my units. So that's one that I would say. And we don't have like cards like Home 1 where we get to pull a unit back in this particular list. So I mean, maybe there's an argument that green is a good version. but I haven't even gotten around to trying green yet. I could see that being pretty decent though. But yes, I mean this was in testing this deck felt great. So again, another one that I think we just have to kind of wait and see, right? Kylo's been amazing. This is my ECL version, which I talked about in the video I just did. That felt the best to me, and I settled on 54 cards because the card draw is so good in here, and just to be able to fit in the things that I wanted to fit, 54 cards felt like the right amount. It's been very consistent in testing. As you can see, we just have a bunch of early Sentinels. We're using the Heirloom Lightsaber to activate Anakin to get set up the triple kills or the -6/-6 early on. We're playing a couple timely so that we can do it again, both with Anakin and Vader. Legal Authority is a great target for Kylo Ren when it flips, in addition to Craving Power. Craving Power is nuts. I love that card. The more I've played that card, the more I've been including it in my green villainy decks. But especially in here because you flip into Craving Power into Legal Authority and you basically kill a unit. Usually, a lot of times it's one in space, and then you can Legal Authority the other, or vice versa. You kill a big unit on the ground, capture something in space. It's just really strong to be able to flip and deal with 2 units on its flip turn. Even Heirloom is good because it still makes it a 7/7, and then it has Restore 1 plus a Legal Authority to capture a unit. So Kylo has been really strong in testing this particular version for me. There's definitely some other versions, which I'll talk about in a second. But this is the version that I've really landed on. Again, you're using Price on your head instead of Resupply because it's an upgrade that you can discard to draw cards when you need to. And of course, we're still playing a lot of early removal. We're playing the 3 takedowns so that we have consistent removal early on so we can get to the Kylo flip turn in case our opponent is getting off to a really fast start. We're only playing a couple of Barrage because we don't have a lot of great Barrage targets, but Barrage occasionally works on our Sentinels, and then it also becomes incredible later on in the game. Sideboard is still a mess. And then, a lot of the typical villainy cards that you see in a normal, like, Qi'ra green list. But this list has been really fun. I definitely think that we're going to see Kylo being played a lot. Like, it's such a unique leader, and like, cards like Craving Power and Legal Authority have been really, really strong. You can also play, Shadowed Intentions. I do think that that's still worthy of a sideboard addition against certain matchups, like heavy removal decks. But there's other versions where you're more focused on Shadow Intentions and Kylo kind of like as a Super Saiyan, so to speak. But that's not really my play style. But this is definitely a deck that I'm really excited about. One of my favorites to play so far. Here's the Datavault version if you wanted to play more 60 cards. But again, I liked the ECL version because I was consistently on curve dealing with things with Anakin or Vader at 6 and then flipping into Kylo. And that just felt really good at keeping my opponent's pressure at bay. And this particular version, we're not able to do that, so it's a little different. Obviously, we have more HP to slow things down, but it definitely felt not as impactful. And a lot of times around that 6 resource turn, my opponent was able to kind of close the game out, and I wasn't able to kind of get a foothold, or I was too far behind because I didn't have that ECL. So, I mean, we have it on 7 in here, but that's not ideal because, as far as for my testing, because I want to be able to flip Kylo and do the Craving Power Legal Authority thing, and having to attack him with Anakin or Vader on that turn to kill 2 units, just the curve was a little slower, so I didn't feel like I was getting much benefit from having the 8 HP from testing. And honestly, in testing, ECL performed way better. So, but I still think that this version is worth revisiting. I still think there's other ways to play this. There's still the control version as well as an option, but again, that's not my preferred style. Barris Blue, this is another really interesting one. I really like the fact that you are able to, now there are 2 of them out, Anakin or Vader on turn 2, which is insane. Like, be able to play now there are 2 of them for 2 cost, and then play Anakin or Vader on turn 2 after you've attacked him with like a Qi'ra, a Kylo, or a Night Sister, or a Sage. Which is why you're playing 12. Again, this is still an early iteration of this, but this has felt really good. Again, you're using a hero Bamboozle as a way to activate Anakin, and you're using Xi'an Flurry as a way to ambush in, so you can ambush in Anakin at 6 resources because you can play Xi'an Flurry for free and do the triple kill thing. So that's really cool. I do think Barris is one of those leaders we're going to see somebody figure out, like, a really sweet way to play this. I think it's between blue or red so far, but I do think that this leader has a lot of potential. Even green, because you can play Overwhelming Barrage at 4 cost, which is just stupid to think about. So I mean, Barris is one of those leaders that somebody's going to break it, and be curious to see how. I think it's not getting as enough attention. I think we've all been waiting for a leader where you can play an event for one less, and yeah, you have to have the Force online. That's I don't know. I think that's why we're playing so many 2 drops, but I do think that this is one of those leaders that will find a way to be relevant. It just that ability is too strong, and as we continue to get more Force support too, I think it's going to be more and more relevant. But this is another one that's been really fun in testing. Again, we have a good amount of unit removal with Assassin and Anakin. We're still getting to ECL, essentially, Anakin and Vader at 6 resources because Shin Flurry is free, as long as we have the Force. And we have some solid early units too, like Shin Hati and Secretive Sage and Karis. Those are all really solid units. And then Chert, again, Chert's just an MVP. And then your typical Power of the Dark Side, no glories as well. Still figuring this one out, but I do like where it's at. It's felt pretty strong, but definitely a fun one as well. Either way, a lot of fun leaders. Like not necessarily going to be the best meta leaders, but they are fun. But again, I think Barris, Kylo, Anakin, and definitely Talzin all have a potential to be very, very relevant. Maul, like I said, I think if we continue to build around its action ability and not so much on its flip, that there's a lot of potential there that somebody might figure out a way to just like spread damage everywhere. Next one, Snoke. So this one is I think a little underrated. Even for me, like when I first looked at this, I was like, it's just a Talzin that you put an experience on the biggest unit, right? But when you start playing around with this, there's some really unique, cool things that you can do. And the fact that Snoke can give an experience token to itself is pretty sweet, honestly. Hylabon is actually pretty nuts in here. I know seems like a weird card, but you make it a 2/5 on turn 1, and then if you get damage on it or keep putting experience on it, it just becomes like this giant grit unit. And then you have things like Craving Power, Gideon to make it even bigger in addition to Snoke. Like I've had some testing games where I had a Hylabon at like 13 damage, swinging in for 13. So there's some pretty crazy stuff. Like you get really big with Hylabon really fast because of grit. 3 timely, of course, so that we can benefit from Vader in particular. We're not playing Anakin in this list. So the focus of this particular list, as I have not done a video on this one, is to play a bunch of early Sentinels, beef up our Sentinels when we're able to, and then just kind of get to Snoke, and then we play our big drops. And Snoke can kind of be like a one-man army. Like it can kind of just beef itself up if there's nothing else on board. Craving Power helps it to get even bigger. Again, this is early testing, but it's felt pretty strong in testing. We're playing 9 Ground Sentinels early, and then we're playing the Supremacy. Supremacy is another card. If you're playing against a ground-heavy deck, sometimes Supremacy can just get out of control up in space, and you can use things like Barrage and Craving Power to just like snipe things on the ground while it just becomes this monster in space. There's some cool things you can do. When Gideon's on board, you can definitely get a Snoke or a Gideon above 10 power very easily. It's not hard at all when you have a Barrage out there or Craving Power. It's a fun one. Again, I don't know how relevant this deck is going to be. Again, it's hard to like guesstimate how things are going to look without the set even being played yet for real. But it's intriguing. It's not what I thought it was going to feel like. It felt a little bit better. Craving Power is amazing. Again, that's such a fun card, and that's one of the cards that I have really been enjoying playing. And then you're using, 3 laser attack and 3 resupply to get to Snoke a little earlier, which is nice. And then your typical removal of Power of the Dark Side, no glory. Of course, the Barrage and the Craving Power feel really strong in here because of all the Sentinels and slowing things down. The 3 Vigilance is super important because there's definitely some games where aggro gets a really fast start on you. The sideboard, of course, is still a mess. Okay, getting into now kind of shifting over to the older leaders that get better. This is my Qi'ra ECL list. I have played around with Qi'ra a lot, because obviously I think Qi'ra is going to be, it's already like the best deck in format, in my opinion. Uh, and I'm sure many would agree with me. But going into the next set, it's like, what's better, ECL or Datavault? I think both are going to be relevant. My particular ECL list is obviously going to be different than a lot of people's, and that's fine. But I am playing 60 cards, and the reason for that is because I wanted to maximize my ability to utilize Anakin and Darth Vader on that ECL turn. It's felt very good in testing. I tried this deck out closer, the ECL version out, like with a more 50 card version. It just felt like I was missing things. I didn't feel like I lost any consistency at all. I've talked about that a lot at 60 cards. I mean, clearly, we've seen Datavault decks have enormous success in the past month, and they're all playing 60 cards. Yes, you could argue that why would you play 60 cards when you're at 25 HP? Is not going to affect your ability to win when you have less HP. But the difference is that we have double killers at 6 resource, and then we already have Qi'ra and Gunship, and we're already ramping sometimes to get there earlier, and it's just the curve feels incredible. Again, we're playing a lot of early removal so that we can try to slow things down when needed to make sure that our HP doesn't get too crazy. Sometimes we're still playing Vigilance first before we ECL Anakin and Vader if our damage is too much. And then, of course, we're playing 3 Reinforcement Walker on our top end as well. I don't know. I think just test out this version and tell me what you think. But I mean, again, I have the Datavault version that I'm going to show you in a second. Anyways, if you feel like that's your more preferred version, but I just think that the benefit of Anakin and Vader ECLing in is just so incredible, and especially, I mean, Anakin especially in decks where there's hero, but Vader especially in here, that it's just, to me, I don't want to wait till 7 or 8 resources to do that, and I want it to be a consistent part of my game plan. Again, you could trim it down to 50 cards, and I think I'll post that link in the description below, like the 50 card version. But this version has tested better. I don't know what else to say. Like I've tested them all a lot. I'm talking like 50 games each for each one. The 60 card version, the 50 card version, and then the Datavault version. This is definitely the version that I prefer. But I am playing the 3-top target on the side as well, just as an additional way to gain life because it is 25 HP against more aggressive opponents. But again, I'd love to hear you guys' feedback, which ones you tried, if you tested these a lot. Definitely let me know your thoughts. But again, I also think it comes down to play style and like personal preference. It's not always like just so black and white what makes like this is the only way you should play a deck. Like I think a lot of times it comes down to play style and preference. And we've seen that with people since this game has begun. Like people are playing like 54, 55 card decks and winning tournaments, and you're like, there's something to that. It's not when you're drawing 2 cards every turn, like, and especially at a certain point if you're not resourcing, like in this deck I usually stop resourcing at 8 resources until I find Avenger if I need it. So I'm there's cool things you can do in this game where you're just drawing free cards, and then you still have things like Pershing and Inferno 4 to set up your draws, and that was the thing. Like when I go to 50 cards, I'm dropping Infernos, I'm cutting like Kylo bonds, I'm dropping some of my Sentinels, I might even cut Long Pike, I'm dropping my Takedown, I'm dropping Anakins, I'm dropping Reinforcement Walkers. I'm not really changing too much is the point. Like everything gets dropped down to get to 50, so the consistency feels the same. It's just, if that makes sense. But here is the Datavault version. Almost identical. I think one difference is I'm playing Supremacy. Yeah. Playing Supremacy in the Datavault version. And then you get to see a few other differences, being that I did drop 1 Anakin because I'm not as focused on the ECL flip. I still have the 3 timely, so I can do that at 7 resources. Anakin's still really good either way, like because I'm doing -3 to something when it's played. I had the Devastator sideboard again is still a mess. This particular version felt a little better. I have tweaked it some more since when I did the video on this like a week ago. again, I think both these decks are going to be relevant. I think it comes down to personal preference. I mean, you're still going to be able to do the timely thing on 7 resources as long as you have a timely in your hand. But what I've found with the timely thing is that a lot of times it's the card that I'm resourcing because I don't have the Anakin or the Vader, and I'm putting it as a resource because I need to use a piece of removal, right, to slow my opponent down or play a Sentinel, and I can't get rid of those cards because they're more important at the moment. So a lot of times that's what happens is like the Anakin or the Vader has to be played on 8 resources no matter what because I can't find another timely in my hand by the time I find those cards, if that makes sense. So that's one thing that I've encountered a lot. Okay, another one that I think gets a lot better. I just put this together today because I had not gotten around to this deck yet, but it's felt great in testing. Really, it's a really interesting like because turn one you're playing like Grogu's a good turn one play. Ezra's great. I can't even say the Bogdu is really good as a 5 power unit. The Phantom's really good as a 5 power unit on turn one. Now obviously they're not activating the Force with the Bogdu and the Phantom, but they're just so powerful. Like at 5 power on turn one, like that's just too good a value to not put in here. Playing a ton of discard in this particular version, which I feel like is going to be very strong with the amount of pressure and cheating units in that we're able to do. Yaddle to set up our Jedis for restore. Ezra boosts our creatures, also boosts our Bendu at 8 resources. Grogu's really nice to like immediately remove units on turn 2 when you action ability and heal itself. Jedi in hiding, of course, with a discard synergy to go with Force Throw and Pillage. 3 constructed lightsabers, really nice in here for like Han Solo's flip for Qi'ra to make it a big Sentinel as a what is it, a 6/8 or no 5/8 Sentinel that has the Force synergy. Obviously, the constructed lightsaber also gives all of our hero units restore 2, which is amazing for a deck like this. Just to make any of those hero units more relevant. I mean, even like Yaddle or Ezra with a constructed lightsaber on turn 2 is just really strong against like aggressive opponents. We're playing the warrior, of course, gives us healing 3. Kiadi gives us card advantage. Couple fell, couple shattered point gives us solid removal against non-leader units. Then we have Anakin and Luke removal. We have Mace Window removal. Anakin and Mace come in on 5 typically. Luke's can come in on 6, of course. So a lot of unit removal is really really sweet. And then our top end of like Bendu, Crate Dragon, and the sideboard, more discard, pillage. But it's felt very strong. I definitely think this is one of those decks a lot of people are going to be playing. I think a lot of people have been psyched about Han. I think Han is going to be good in a lot of colors. I think green's going to be very, very good. Uh, I think yellow could potentially even be solid, but I think blue and green are what we're going to see the most. I would definitely play this in blue at this current point in time just because of Anakin and Chirrut. And I mean, Shatterpoint's good too, but Anakin and Chirrut are just so freaking good. So, but that's my take on this list. But I definitely think you're going to see this deck everywhere, and the amount of hand disruption in here too is just really really going to help against mid range and control decks, as in combination with the cheating out of units and unit removal. So, and one more thing about that, I think the aggro matchup for this deck got so much better because of Yaddle, Chirrut, constructed lightsaber, warrior. Even Anakin, baby Luke, just being able to remove things when it's played. Shatterpoint's really good. I just think all around this is going to be one of those decks that just is very well rounded, kind of like Talzin, but with more card draw. So going to be very strong. Rey Red gets better too, in my opinion. Very similar, and it's all these hero red blue decks. I think it's hard to say which one's going to be the best. I do think for right now, I would choose between the Han deck, Rey, and Anakin. But I think Han and Rey in particular are going to be very strong. And this one I need to tweak a little bit more, but a little bit different, because of those synergies with Rey, like getting Black 1 as a 4/4 on turn 2. I feel like I need to have Secretive Sage in here potentially instead of Night Sister. But I like the card draw from Night Sister. Maybe instead of Witch of the Mist. Another reason Witch of the Mist was in here is for the Force Throw on turn 1, but I don't know how important that is. You also make it a 2/4, you know, so it's not like the worst thing. Sorcerer's Blast might need to be a sideboard card for Secretive Sage. I think that makes sense to me. But then you know, of course, you're playing the Jedi in Hiding again, the Pillage. Still playing a lot of these unit removals. Playing a Yoda in here because Yoda is definitely good in Rey. Constructed Lightsaber is very, very strong in here. I mean, attaching that to a Rey on its flip turn gives it Restore 5, which is insane. Again, I think Rey's aggro matchup got a lot better, and it's already good against mid-range control in a lot of matchups. So you get the card advantage with Ki-Adi-Mundi as well, and the same thing with the Fellow Dragons and the Shatter Points. So very similar to the last list, but I do think both these decks are going to be played a lot, and they both got a lot better. With again, Qi'ra, Anakin are just so strong, and Shatterpoint is solid, especially because of its ability to defeat things when you don't have the Force. But I do think with the amount of Force units in here on turn 1, like you're going to be okay. A lot of games, except have like hard control. But then again, you have so much hand disruption against hard to control that I think that you're pretty good there too. So okay, this is another one that's really cool. Like again, this one is I do think that this got a little better playing, you know, a lot of early, what is it, like 11 turn 1 plays in here. So what's cool about this particular list is that you can use the Xian Flurry with Anakin once you have heroes and villainies in your discard pile, which is going to happen very easily, and be able to ambush in on 7 resources and kill 4 things because of Qui-Gon Jinn's on attack ability that says the next time you use a when played ability, you may use that ability again. So if you're able to attack him with Qui-Gon on your 7 resource turn, and then you can ambush in with Anakin and do 5 damage with ambush, and then do -3/-3 3 times. You get to do it the 2 times from Anakin, and then 1 additional time because of Qui-Gon. So you can, in theory, kill 4 units. So that is disgusting. I definitely think we might see this deck become more relevant because of Vader and Anakin. And Xian Flurry is just, it's so, just, it feels like almost as strong as it does in Barris because of what you're able to accomplish in this deck with it. And this deck already does a great job of like drawing cards and just like staying relevant in the game and being annoying. So it's very, very likely that you're going to be able to pull this off sometimes. At the very least, you're going to be able to pull off the triple kill with Anakin because of the synergies with the hero and villainy cards. But this is just another one that's really, really cool. I do think that we might see this become relevant, which is cool because it's such a cool leader. But here's my take on it so far. Just a lot of early Sentinels. Just early heroes to get in the bin when we need them. We have the Loth Wolf, Concordon, Village Protectors, Chilson, and then we have our unit removal. Genesis Patrol Fighter to exploit things and kill them when we need something to die, so that we can flip Chancellor from the hero side. And then, you know, your typical removal with your power, you know, Glory. And then a couple of Redemption as an additional way, additional Sentinel in space. And then a couple of Avenger. So still a work in progress, but just thought I'd share this one. It's a really cool deck, and it's a lot of fun to play. And it's just always nice to play like decks where you can pull off like cool combos to do crazy things. So Anakin is another one of those, you know, hero red blue decks that I think is just going to be really strong. I think all these decks are going to be really strong. The addition of Jedi in Hiding, with Force Throw being like a lot easier activated, and then you throw Pillage in there. I just feel like these decks are going to be very strong. Any combination of them between, you know, Anakin, Rey, and Han, like they all have different strengths as far as their leader abilities. Constructed Lightsaber is very, very good in here as well as it was in Rey, as it is in Han. Like, and as I've played all 3 of these, Constructed Lightsaber has been a card that I didn't have in there initially, and And then after trying it out, I was like, I'm not taking that card out. It just felt too good. It gives you an additional form of restore. It makes your aggro matchup even better. It makes your Sentinels stronger. It makes Anakin have restore 2 on its flip turn. If you play 2 constructed lightsabers, then I mean, Anakin's like at least a 10 powered unit with restore 4, which is insane. There's just little things like that. But beefing up like Qi'ra and Anakin, of course, the Anakin unit as well. Putting a constructed lightsaber on Luke Skywalker to make it have restore 5 is nuts. But it really just any of these units, like in a lot of matchups, constructed lightsaber can be really impactful. But this has been great in testing as well. Just a ton of discard, like I said. Depending on what you're playing against, like that discard really helps against mid range and control as you're keeping that consistent pressure while obliterating their hand. You can just kind of like attack in with Jedi and hiding into something so that it dies, so that you can trigger its discard ability and then play like a pillage and a force throw on the same turn. I mean, that's what discarding 4 cards from your opponent's hand. That's insane for 5 resources. And ideally still have a couple units on board with that situation. But it's happened a couple times in testing. Like there's just a lot of ways to really mess with your opponent. I still think the Village Protectors and the Concord Dawn are necessary just to kind of slow things down. A lot of turn 1 force units just to try to get that online. Playing a couple of Fel, a couple of Shatterpoint just to kind of spread out the removal in addition to the force throws. And then, of course, you have your unit removal with Anakin, Mace Windu, and Luke Skywalker. A little bit, 2 of each Anakin and Mace Windu, depending on different situations where it's better to go -3, or it's better to do 4 damage. Just it kind of depends. Shields is usually when you want to use Anakin, or just like something in space. You want to try to maximize Mace Windu's 4 damage when it's more relevant. But another one that I just think is you're going to be seeing a ton of these hero red blue decks. I think, like I said, I think all 3 of them are going to be really good going into the next set. These archetypes were already competitive. Like Anakin was one of the top 5 to 10 decks last set. Rey Red has been, I think initially it was one of the best decks, and then it kind of faded out, but it's still been competitive. And then Han2 Blue, like that was also one of the best decks when it first came out, and then it kind of faded a little bit. But I think the addition of those cards, and then Force Throw just being a lot more relevant because of all the Force synergy it has now. This deck, all these hero red blue decks, got 8 cards to add to an already good archetype. You got Jedi in hiding, Constructed Lightsaber, Chirrut, Warrior, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shatterpoint, Anakin, and Mace Windu. All 3 of these decks got 8 cards that are good. Really good cards. So all 3 of these decks, in my opinion, are going to be some of the best decks going into the next set. I think all of them are very well balanced. They have much better aggro matchups. They have great hand disruption, good early pressure for more mid-range and control matchups, and I just think they're going to be some of the best decks. Cad Bane. It's another one that I think gets a little bit of help. Aura Sing is really good. It's a really good card that comes in with Hidden and Raid 2. I do like Tip to Scale in the sideboard as more hand disruption for like control matchups. I almost think that you could even deal with control or like by playing a couple pillage as well. But yeah, that's another one I think that gets a little bit better. There's some other units you could play too, but I like where this list is at. It's felt pretty good in testing. I haven't played around with Cad Bane too much, as I've been focused more on the new leaders, but I do think that it gets a little better from this set. And here's another fun one, Nala ECL. Again, it's like you're playing these. This is again a 60 card version. Again, because it felt clunky at 50. I tried it at 50, it didn't feel as good. But at 60, I'm able to have the right amount of things that I want in here, so that I can consistently find the hero cards, so I can activate those triple kills with Anakin. Nala itself is obviously not a good leader, and there's not a lot of clones in here. So why play it? So that you can use ECL with Anakin is the reason that you would play this. You're still playing like Dark Saber on Nala, which makes it more relevant when you have that in your hand. And originally this list looked a lot different. If you watch my video, I go into a lot more detail about it. But the clones are just bad, most of them. There's no Sentinels that are clones, so I ended up having to go more and more towards villainy to get Sentinels in here. And this is kind of where it turned out, and it's actually felt really good in testing. So again, and do I think this is going to be like meta? No. But do I think it's fairly competitive? Yes. And I do think if you want to play something a little different, check this out. But just another fun one that's exciting. But and yeah, I mean, last but not least is Grand Inquisitor Yellow. I definitely think this deck got some cool tools to use. Do I think it's going to be like super competitive? No, but it's still going to be fun. It's still pretty fast. It can definitely race with the fastest aggro decks in the game. I don't know how well that's going to be. Just the flip on 6 is what's always limited Grand Inquisitor, right? Like if it was on 5, it'd be so much better. But this deck is still really good. You can really get in some big power quickly with like one card in particular I really like, and here's Guerrilla Soldier, just like as a way to like just get in for 5 damage on turn 2. Grand Inquisitor, of course, swings in for 4 on turn 2. Yeah, obviously Fifth Brother is a very good turn 2 because it can swing in for 5 as well. So a lot of consistency there with hitting for a lot of power. Aura Sing is a really good addition from Legends of the Force. I like Strike Ship too, and I like putting the Vader pilot on it as well, because then you can attack with it twice in a turn, even with Vader attached, which is sweet. Grim Resolve is nice as a way to push damage alongside Surprise Strike. The Marauder is pretty sweet as well on turn 2. The Tusken Trekker is pretty cool too. I mean, there's just a lot of really good turn 2 plays. And then what is it called? Scimitar, the spaceship, the 4 resource card. Like to swing in for 6 damage is amazing with that card, and obviously you can just do that the one time. I think where that card really shines is like a sneak attack in for like getting in it for a total of like 9 damage. Another great sneak attack target is Thralls of the Coven to swing in for 12 damage, which is pretty disgusting. So just some really cool things you can do in here. I could see a world where people play this at locals a lot because it definitely got better. But just another fun one. It's nice to see that this deck got a little better, and it has some legit tools in yellow for sure. I think yellow is the way I would play it. Just because of like some of these yellow units are really really good for pushing damage. So. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear what you guys are working on as well and excited about. But here's just some of the decks that I've been working on, decks I've been excited about going into Legends of the Force. But as always, y'all have a good one, and peace out.